Social shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just some social shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can put all that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Yes, people, what is going on? We're back in the building with another top 10. And today we're going to be taking a look at midfielders. So just to make it easier, I have warped all of them. So defensive midfielders, central midfielders, and attacking midfielders. We're going to try and go through our top 10. Let me know what yours is in the comment section. Without further ado, let's start with it. So starting off today's list at number 10, we have got Tchouaméni, the French and Real Madrid midfielder, who I actually believe is a little bit underrated, to be honest with you. I mean, he's had to play centre-back as well just because of the injuries that Real Madrid have, of course, had over there at centre-back. And I think his performances at midfield, you know, whether they be for France, whether they be for Real Madrid, he's been excellent. He's been really going a little bit under the radar with the work that he does off the ball, the fact that he can help screen, you know, the back four, you know, helping out with that. And also he can pop up with a goal, as we saw, you know, for France. So listen, I think he's a well-rounded midfielder. I do think there's still more to come from someone like Tchouaméni, but listen, right now, I think we're looking at a very, very good midfielder. At number 9, we have got Arsenal's captain, Martin Ødegaard. Now, listen, I've heard a lot of Arsenal fans speaking about Ødegaard this season. I understand, of course, he hasn't really performed. He's been injured, of course, for quite some time this season, and that's obviously not helped. But also, I think there's been a little bit of a shift and a change in the way that Arsenal have played this season, which I think for players like him, it has had a little bit of an impact. Hence the reason why I don't feel that we're right at this moment in time seeing the best of Martin Ødegaard. The best of Martin Ødegaard has been, I would say, the last 3 seasons for Arsenal, to be honest with you. You know, 2 obviously performing at a really, really high level, you know, helping Arsenal to challenge for the Premier League. But 3, I would say, you know, he was working himself, you know, towards that kind of level. And to me, he's still an absolutely fantastic operator, you know, playing in those kind of pockets of spaces, in those half spaces, you know, closer towards goal. He's also someone who can kind of mix it in the middle of the park. He's someone that you can easily give the ball to, you know, rarely loses it. You know, he's someone who can work well, really under pressure. And I think things like that, you know, the cultured midfielders that we like to see, you know, I think he can definitely turn into one of those kind of players. At number 8, we have got another Arsenal midfielder, and yes, it is Declan Rice. I want to know why people do not rate Declan Rice as highly as I do, to be honest with you. You know, it's a player who can, you know, play in the 6, he can play in the 8. He's got brilliant set piece delivery. You know, I didn't actually know he had that in his locker, but he has shown, of course, this and last season that he's definitely got those kind of qualities. But I don't feel like he gets the ratings from everybody. I don't know if it's just because of the fee. Yes, do I think he was worth the fee? No, not really. I think those kind of fees, in my opinion, should be reserved for players who are more established. And at that time, I didn't feel like he was an established, you know, talent, you know, at that kind of point in time. I still felt that he was working his way up to that. And I think if you had signed Declan Rice today, then yes, the 100 million that Arsenal spent, to me, would have made sense, because you would then be getting a better representation of that value. But listen, ultimately, he has performed for Arsenal. This guy's got serious leadership qualities as well. You can see it. You can tell he's going to be an Arsenal captain. You know, I'll be very surprised and very shocked if he isn't. You know, this is barring, you know, if someone like Ødegaard was to leave. But when I look at someone like Declan Rice, he can bring the ball out from the back, from the defense. He doesn't shy away from anything in the midfield, whether it's battling, whether it's getting the ball off of the defenders, whether it's, you know, trying to work under pressure. He loves all of that kind of stuff, and I feel like he likes taking on the responsibility of being the guy. Whether he can be or not, I think that's all irrelevant. The fact that he never shies away from it is one of the reasons why I do think that he's a very, very good midfielder. And I think, you know what, with Erdegard's injury this season, to be honest, I feel like Declan Rice has probably just gone a little bit ahead of him. But again, apples and oranges. So to number 7, and we have got Florian Wirtz. The last 2 seasons, including this season, for Florian Wirtz has been absolutely excellent. Goals, assist after assist after assist. One of the main reasons as to why the Bundesliga was won by Bayern Leverkusen last season. And, you know, it's crazy watching Florian Wirtz, you know, coming back from his injury. You know, we didn't know, but prior to the injury, you always knew that this guy was, you know, destined for some type of greatness, right? Or you knew that he would definitely be some type of top talent. But Jesus, I mean, what he's kind of come back into, this guy is absolutely crazy, you know. And I think it's, I don't want to say inevitable because I don't want to sound disrespectful to, you know, Bayern Leverkusen, but I think it is inevitable that he will be moving to a top club, a bigger club, should I say, than Bayern Leverkusen very, very soon, potentially even this summer. This guy is way too talented, and I think Germany are so blessed right now that they've got a good couple of young players in their team who have got years left before we even really see, you know, their ultimate peak. And I pray and I hope that we, you know, we are fortunate enough to actually be able to witness what a Florian Wirtz is going to be able to do in the future. I mean, the guy is still under the age of 23. So imagine what he even looks like, you know, if he continues his development, continues this level of form, what that's going to look like at, for example, the age of 25, 26, 27, you know, when he's really experienced, you know, in the game. So definitely a top player. And I think, you know, he's had these 2 seasons, and I think he's earned the right to be in this position. Number 6, KDB, Kevin De Bruyne. I'll be honest, it's more reputation than anything else, but listen, I don't really care, I'll be honest with you, because when we're talking about midfielder, when you're talking about a player who has terrorized, you know, football for about the last just under a decade, you know, you have to be talking about someone like Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best players of his generation, definitely one of the best players, and he will go down as a Premier League legend. But even right now, I mean, even last season, the guy was injured for, you know, parts of last season. He came back and helped Manchester City, you know, to win the Premier League. And it just kind of shows that, like, someone with that level of quality, that type of ability, it doesn't really matter how long they're out for. They just come back and they've just got that knack of just being the best, you know, at what they do. And, you know, chance after chance, you know, that he creates for his team, for his players. It's honestly, KDB, I know this is more, it is more based on reputation. So listen, if we do this list next year, I don't think he'd even make the top 10, to be honest with you. And I think he's probably going to leave Europe come the end of the season. But I think just as a last kind of like hurrah, you know, I would put him in there, you know, just above the other guys, just because we're talking about ability in itself and, you know, the things that he has won, of course, in the last year or 2, you know, with Manchester City. And listen, man, KDB definitely deserves it. So now we get to the top 5, and at number 5 we have got Mr. Versatile himself, and that is Valverde, the Real Madrid midfielder slash right back. Are we going to call him that now? You know, seeing that he's obviously occupying that position again due to, just like Tchouaméni, just due to the injuries. But listen, Valverde is probably one of those midfielders that I think every club in the world would want to have him, and he would suit every single system in the world, whether it's tiki-taka, whether it's possession based, whether it's direct counter-attack, low block, mid block, pressing, whatever it is that you do. I think Valverde is probably one of only maybe 2 midfielders I can think of in the entire world who fits into any system, because he can play all sorts of football. You know, he's got the technical ability to be able to play that possession kind of based game. He can do the counter attack. You know, he's relatively quick. He's definitely got an engine. So if you need him to, you know, run around in your midfield, he can do that. And also as well, you really don't want him to lick shots from outside of the edge of the box. You know, he can be really, really dangerous. And I think a player like that, you know, who can be such a utility but perform at such a high level in most positions, if not all positions that he plays in, those are dime a dozen. And I think someone like Valverde definitely deserves to be in the top 5 talked about midfielders in the world. So in at number 4, and this one kind of hurt me to put him in at number 4, but especially because everybody knows that he's probably one of, if not my favorite player, you know, in world football right now, and that is Jamal Musiala. This guy is, I don't know. It's so difficult to really explain the kind of player that he actually is, you know, without getting people, you know, confused as to the type of players that I like. Because a bit like Valverde, these guys can do everything. They really, really can. You know, if you need him to play attacking midfield, he can do that. Left wing, right wing, false 9, number 9, DM, central midfield. He can do all of that. You know, he can do all of that. He does all of it to such a high level. He's a silky dribbler, you know, but he can also, again, he can mix it in the middle of the park. You know, he isn't afraid, you know, to be able to, you know, get into these 1v1 duels and things like that. You know, he's so clever on and off the ball that it makes it so difficult to people to mark him. He's got skills, you know, he can finish, you know, he's shown that he can be relatively efficient as well. Honestly, top player, and easily one of the best players in world football. Now to the top 3. Now we're getting to the real ballers in world football. And obviously, you know, if we're talking about real ballers, we cannot skip someone like Pedri. Listen, Pedri's had his injury problems, but if you actually look at the amount of games that he's actually played over the last couple of seasons, he's played a lot of football, just like he did at the beginning of his career. And I think we all thought that him, Gavi, and a few others, that they were going to almost have their careers cut short just because of the amount of injuries and the length of time that these guys were out for. But listen, since Pedri kind of came back like last season, I would say, he is just on a completely different level. This guy in and out of possession, ridiculous. First touch, ball control, technique, spatial awareness, positional awareness. You know, this guy has everything. You know, he can do so much in the middle of the park. And of course, a bit of bias, you know, that I'm talking with just because I'm a Barcelona fan, and, you know, I love the way that he plays the game. And he is literally, if I had to pick a perfect midfielder, he would be the guy. He would definitely be in my team, you know, 1,000,000%. And I think more testament to him, you know, from coming back from, you know, all of the kind of injury kind of layoffs and things like that, and to operate at this level, you know, alongside, you know, Gavi as well, who by the way would have been an honorable mention, or is an honorable mention, but of course he's just spent way too much time out injured. But he's another top quality player. But the both of them together, oh my goodness, Barcelona, they've done an Iniesta and Xavi 2.0, and it's actually scary to see. Now in at number 2, and you know what, I have to give this player, Jude Bellingham, big ratings, because I had my doubts about him when he did move to Real Madrid. You know, I didn't know if he'd be able to perform at this kind of level, and especially the way that he is performing for Real Madrid. You wouldn't know that he just moved to Real Madrid. He doesn't play like a player who just moved to Real Madrid. He plays like a player that's been here for 10 years and won 8 Champions Leagues and 6 league titles, and, you know, numerous amount of, that's the way he plays. There has been zero fear. Well, I mean, he might not tell us, but from what we see on the pitch, barking at his players, you know, telling his players what to do, showing that arrogance, but also showing that authority, the leadership qualities to play for a club like Real Madrid. He literally has just shown it all. Now, he's not my cup of tea in terms of as a player and, you know, his type of style of play, but you cannot deny that this guy is clutch when you need him to be a clutch player, and he can operate in numerous positions, whether it be, you know, as a 2 in a double pivot, whether it be as a box 8, or whether it be as a number 10, or even as he was doing last season, was almost playing as like a false 9 / Frank Lampard-esque, you know, in terms of the amount of goals and popping up on the edge of the box, you know, scoring these clutch goals, you know, for Real Madrid. And I think he's shown, and that's one thing I definitely have to rate Jude Bellingham for, because I didn't know he had that in him, is that he's been able to show that, you know what, he can put a team on his back and get them going. And he's just shown that, you know, time and time and time again for Real Madrid. And to be honest, I don't even know how far that this guy can go. I mean, probably a Ballon d'Or is probably within his reach, I would say. I know they prefer to give it to attackers, but if he keeps on performing the way he does, I think Ballon d'Or is very, very close. And now we come to numero uno, and that is Rodri. Now, of course, we know Rodri has been out this season with a serious injury, so has barely played. But I don't think I've seen a better midfielder, I would say, than Rodri this season, to be honest with you. And I think the fact that he has been out for this amount of time and how poor we've seen Manchester City this season, you can see how influential he actually is to this Manchester City side. And for Pep Guardiola, he is the system, you know, in that team. This guy can operate as a centre back if you need him to, DM, box 8, heck, I wouldn't be surprised if he could operate as an attacking midfielder. You know, he can pop up with goals as well. You know, he's brilliant on the ball. He's got an eye for a pass. You know, he can tackle, he can defend, he can do everything that you'd honestly want. And in terms of modern day midfielders, he is the pinnacle of that in today's game. Hence why I have got Rodri as the #1 midfielder. But there you guys have it. That is my top 10 midfielders. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.